Welcome, software engineers, to the last week of CSC 222 software engineering. Wow, day 27. Yeah, we have covered a tremendous amount of material. Hopefully, you've learned a lot of interesting things. Hopefully, my PowerPoint slides have not reminded you of a service monkey. Let's move on, shall we? We do, just so you know, I do have one more guest speaker. I was hoping to have her today, but at the last minute, she had some things going on, so we're doing that on Thursday. Today, we're going to finish up any new material in software engineering. I'm going to see if you have any questions. Wednesday, then, I do want to have one more guest speaker, and then we'll spend, after she speaks for the first less than half of the class, then we're going to review the important concepts in the course so you're ready for exam number 3. We'll review the important things from Unit 3 of software engineering. If you look online at Blackboard, you will see something entitled Team Assessment. I'm going to ask each member of the team, individually and privately, to assess everyone on your team. That includes you. One thing that you're going to do often in the work world of software engineering, computer science, or really anything else is self-assessment or self-evaluation. When I worked in industry, twice a year, we had to perform a self-evaluation. And these things are hard. You need to very legitimately and honestly evaluate your performance. And by the way, other people know your performance. It doesn't do any good to say, yeah, I was an A+ performer, when in fact you were not. It's actually better to underrate yourself a little bit and then have other people say, oh, no, you were better than that. Not a good idea to overrate your abilities. Don't have to spend a lot of time on this. Assign everybody a grade. This grade is not anyone's grade in the project, but I'm just looking for, I already have a good idea of how different people are performing and what they're doing in the team based upon some other things. But I'd just like to hear everybody's feedback on that. It's the only people that will see it are you and me. I'm not sharing this with anybody else. Honestly evaluate your own performance and your 3 other team members' performance. Assign a grade, and then just a couple sentences of explanation for that grade. Thanks for doing that. Our project team is composed of a nitwit, an ogre, and a... Which one of them is the nitwit? You didn't bring any donuts, mate, the nitwit. Yes. Poor guy. Okay, let's make sure, just because sometimes seeing things on Blackboard is not as easy as it might be. See, in CS 11, this is the last of the Christianity and computer science assignments dealing with the 10th commandment that's due today. Team assessment. Oh, I wonder when I said that's due. Probably Monday or something like that. Now, don't stress over that. Just do it. The 2 big things upcoming then are Sprint 3. There is no document for this sprint. Legitimately, there should be, but in the interest of time, your time, no, just the 3rd sprint. The 3rd sprint is meant to be the finished project. As we've said several times in the class, each sprint is designed to be a shippable product. It's something that can be usable. It may not have all the features and functions, but those features and functions that exist actually work. That's a sprint. And in this 3rd sprint, it's designed to provide all of the specifications in the original project. Now, that's due a week from Wednesday. And yeah, we're not meeting next week because it's final exam week, but this will give you and the team the opportunity to find some time to meet, get things together, get things tested. Exam number 3. Our exam is scheduled for Monday, a final exam week, beginning at 3 o'clock or 3:05 or something like that. That's Monday, a week from today, December 12th. We are not having a comprehensive final exam. The final exam is a unit exam, the same size and complexity as the first 2 exams. Material is different because it's covering Unit 3. And I'm going to review that in detail on Wednesday. You'll find the exam on Blackboard, and it will open up before 3 o'clock on Monday, maybe sometime around 10 o'clock, and then it'll be open throughout the day on Monday. This way you can find a convenient time. There's a couple of you that have a conflict with this class and are doing this class along with another course, some of you a music course that meet at the same time. So this way, if you're having an exam in another course, you'll be able to allocate your time, do it sometime on Monday. Format of exam 3, same format that you saw in the first 2 exams. True, false, multiple choice, short answer. And there will be several extra credit questions scattered throughout that also. If you think back to the first 2 exams, you could very likely predict what some of the exam questions will be, or at least what they'll be about. I'll give you the opportunity to actually make that prediction. We'll review Wednesday. Speaking of review, I haven't done this in a few days. I know you haven't forgotten. Software engineering is defined as management of the entire software development process. Notice that in each of the phases, we've been talking a lot about management and how that applies to, in this unit, that would be maintenance and what was that other thing we did in this one? Oh yeah, deployment. Software engineering is described as professional problem solving. I have focused on professionalism a lot. We're going to talk and review and flesh that out in completeness today. I read a book about how to be a great leader and realized I don't do any of those things. I'm surprised that a book with so many errors could get published. It must have been written by disgruntled underlings. Do those exist? Management, as we've seen, is not just telling other people what to do like the pointy-haired boss does. Instead, it is management of me, my skills, my abilities, my understanding, my time in software development. Here's my complete list. I should update this. I will update it because I had some good suggestions like number 5, and a couple of folks had some other ones too. But I want to update it now because, see, I want to claim it as my own. Yeah. Being dedicated, civil, on time, team player, cool and calm, dependable, honest, respectful, content, helpful. I don't think you'll get a lot of argument with anybody in a profession who would say, nah, being respectful or nah, that's not, yes, yeah. I would encourage you to think about these. I would encourage you to develop your own list, but think about something in regards to professionalism. I've used the 10 Commandments as a hook or a connection for these aspects of professionalism. The end of Exodus, after the 10 Commandments have been given. Now, when all the people saw the thunder and the flashes of lightning and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, They were afraid and trembled. And they stood far off and said to Moses, "You speak to us and we will listen. But do not let God speak to us, lest we die." Moses said to the people, "Do not fear, for God has come to test you, that the fear of him may be before you, that you may not sin." The people stood far off, while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was, that you may not sin. Professionalism is a double-edged sword, telling us both positively how to behave and how to be, and also, by contrast, showing us what not to do. Of the 10 Commandments, and for those of you that have paid close attention in your theology and religion courses, you know that in first century Palestine, the religious leaders, the Pharisees, erected a wall around the 10 Commandments. Not only did they think there were 10 commandments, they added 600 additional commandments. Yeah, there were a lot of commandments. Does that help? Because now when you read this, one of the scribes, a lawyer, an expert in God's law, came up and heard them disputing with one another, and seeing that he had answered them well, that Jesus had answered the other religious leaders well, asked him, "Which commandment is most important of all?" Jesus answered, "The most important is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength." Being committed, being dedicated. The second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. The scribe, the lawyer, was, of course, dumbfounded. And all he can say is, "You have answered well, teacher." Here's the tablets I told you about, Mo. There's no upgrade planned, but they do come with cloud support. Yeah, there haven't been revisions to the 10 Commandments. There was no need to do so, unlike revisions to software. Last time, then, we began talking about the very last subject in CSC 222, the philosophy of software engineering. The word philosophy comes from the Greek word philosophia, meaning love of wisdom. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. Last time I shared with you the goal of software engineering. Using our God-given creativity, produce an acceptable product. The product is the thing that we're going to hand to somebody. It's the software system. It's the app. Produce an acceptable product. Acceptable to whom? Acceptable to the user. The user decides whether this was good or not. Not me, not you, not the software engineers, not the boss. The user decides if it's acceptable. Using our God-given creativity, produce an acceptable product using a defined process. The process that we have employed is the software development lifecycle. Added to that was this Scrum concept. Tiny bit of DevOps that I kind of shield you from that. But we used a defined process. How do we make the product? We follow the software engineering development lifecycle. Using our God-given creativity, produce an acceptable product, using a defined process, following professional project management. In other words, doing all the things the process says. Do we create a traceability matrix? Are we doing white box testing? Does our design say exactly how to solve the problem? Did we do all those things? Did we manage it well? Then we met our goal. Here it is, the goal of software engineering. I've shared with you a few times that software engineering is a creative activity. This is why I think it's interesting. I think you heard in our previous two presenters last week that they both said, when I asked them, well, what's fun or what's interesting or why do you like computer science? This idea of creativity, being able to create something, and Dr. Lippman said, out of thought stuff, just dreaming it up and then being able to do it. Software engineering it's exciting. Computer science is exciting. It's a creative activity. I believe that the creative process is Trinitarian. 3 aspects to the creative process. First aspect of the creative process is the idea. The idea is the mental model, the abstract thought about the problem and the solution. In software engineering, the idea is embodied in requirements and specifications. Recs and specs are all about fleshing out the idea. One aspect of the creative process, the idea. Another aspect of the creative process is implementation. We have to take this abstract mental model in our minds and make it concrete, make it real, instantiate it in hardware and software. In software engineering, this is design and instantiation. Make that idea concrete, real. Make the product. The third aspect of creativity is interaction. Once we have that concrete product, that real object, it doesn't just sit there and do nothing. Other human beings are going to interact with it. Someone's going to use your app, whether it's the Add Numbers app on the shop floor, or whether it's your team project. Somebody's going to use that to actually solve problems. It's come full circle now. Interaction for us, deployment and maintenance. Every creative process, whether in computer science, like software engineering, or really anywhere else, is Trinitarian. 3 aspects. Software engineering is just a logical extension of our creative activity. I told you earlier in this class that I got this concept from a 20th century British author, Dorothy Sayers. She wrote a very influential book, at least to me, called The Mind of the Maker. And in that book, one of the things she did is she showed that all creative processes are Trinitarian. Now, her goal in that book was trying to help illustrate the Christian idea of the triune God. And she said, if you think about how people create, that will give you some insight. Because created in God's image, we should reflect some aspects of God. Dorothy Sayers didn't use these terms. I took the terms and changed them. But I want to make sure you understand, I didn't dream this up. I wish I had. It's really cool. I stole it from Dorothy Sayers. Dorothy Sayers didn't dream it up either. She stole it from God. It's in the biblical text. Now, of course, by stole, we don't really mean stealing. We just mean, Great idea. Let me use that in this context. Dorothy Sayers used it in the context of a writer, because that's what she was. I'm using it in the context of a software engineer. Idea, implementation, interaction. Let me share with you how Dorothy Sayers put this together. She said, look, think about God as creator of heavens and earth. God the Father, by the way, it's a little hard to separate the people of the Trinity. God is God. But God the Father certainly had this idea, a mental model of creation, a physical universe, the pinnacle of which was human beings. God also, and let's just say God the Son, had the energy to implement a physical universe, to actually create the universe. If it strikes you as odd that I'm saying it was Jesus who created the universe, check out Colossians 1, or take a look at the second article of the Nicene Creed. And in both places, you can read that it was God the Son who actually implemented the universe. Final aspect of creation. How would we know anything about this if it weren't for the work of the Holy Spirit? The Spirit has the power to inform us of the meaning associated with this creation. If it weren't for the Spirit acting through the Word, we'd have no idea what this is all about. All aspects of creation are threefold. We do it as a tiny mirror or reflection of the way God originally did it. All right, let's take a look at, when we talked about the goal, using our God-given skills and abilities to, first of all, create an acceptable product, acceptable to the user. How would we know? You're saying, well, wait a minute. The user could just, no. The user can't just dream stuff up. The user will tell you what's acceptable in the requirements and specifications. That's why we do that. We're getting the user's idea to understand it. And now, if the user says, oh, this is so cool, this product you made, but I'd like it to do this, we can legitimately say, you know what? Great idea. But that wasn't the original specification, so it wasn't what we produced. But we are happy and thrilled to maintain this product for an additional fee to add this new enhancement for you. Acceptable product. The product is the software system. It is the app or whatever it is we're creating. Using our God-given skills and abilities, create an acceptable product using a defined process. Early on, and I'll review this today, I mentioned one of the problems with software engineering is people treating it like an art form, doing whatever we want. There are good processes. A characteristic of a professional is to plan her work and work her plan. Have a process to follow. Our defined process, software development lifecycle, using that Scrum philosophy. Is that the only one? Is that the best one? No. But you have to use a process. Using our God-given skills and abilities, number one. Number two, create an acceptable product. Number three, using a defined process. Number four, following professional project management. Software engineering is project management. There are a number of folks who have the title project manager. Really what they're doing is following the software development lifecycle. Professional project management, which says not only have that process for number three, but do it. What's management? Not only planning beforehand, but checking that you did it afterwards. Validation, verification. Will you miss these Zeb and Zeke ones and the Chuck Norris ones? Just send me an email message and I'll send you a random one over the break. I was fired from my job at the calendar factory. Why? What happened? Jeez, all I did was take a day off. All I did was take a day off. Everybody's looking at that calendar intently. Is there a day missing? Got it. Thank you. Chuck Norris race time and won. If we could be 1/100th the individual that Chuck Norris is, we would be doing well. All right. Does it seem silly to talk about people? Can we talk about the roles that people play in software engineering? Lots of discussion over the effectiveness, or if you will, the productivity between different software engineers. This is a statement that has been repeated so often, it's kind of set in software engineering lore. There's at least a 10 times productivity difference between the best and the worst software engineers. The best software engineers are 10 times more productive than the worst software engineers. As a matter of fact, though, I think you'll find that folks in the know say it's much wider than that. Oh, we should really look at these, shouldn't we? Maybe I'll let you look them up. How fair would that be? I'll just do one of these. Otherwise, you'll think I'm making it up. It's widely accepted in the software industry that some programs are much more productive than others. Many experts cite an order of magnitude productivity difference. Order of magnitude, that's 10, right? Last week, I did my corporate charity work by teaching unemployed people how to interview for jobs. Don't they also need job skills? Nah, I taught them how to look busy. No boss will be fooled by that. Do you believe I trained unemployed people last week? You can learn a lot from Wally. Wally's kind of at the low end of the spectrum, with Dilbert's at the high end of the spectrum. Great designers create great things. That's an interesting statement. Yet there is a danger, as I alluded to before. Software engineering is not artistic self-expression. There's art in it, and it's creative, but it is not artistic self-expression. I bet many of you know who this is. I feel sorry for Bob Ross. For some reason, he's more famous after he died than while he was alive and painting on PBS. Think about an artist, though. Bob Ross, of course, was famous for phrases like, there are no errors, just happy little accidents. He painted trees a lot also. Now imagine he just painted blobs. Nobody would know what those blobs were. So although he's very artistic, notice it wasn't just total self-expression. There had to be interaction we had to know, oh yeah, that's a tree. So there's an art to software engineering, but it's not only art. Thank you. In Unit 1, I shared this with you really quickly. Can I come back to it now? I believe that there are 3 kinds of work. First of all, there's a job. The purpose of a job is to earn money. As a college student, I worked as a mechanic in a Ford Motor Company garage. That wasn't my ultimate goal in life. I just did it to earn money to help pay for college. I think you can probably relate to that. You've likely had several jobs to earn some money to help pay expenses in college, etc. The purpose of a job is to earn money. There's nothing wrong with that. Another aspect of work is what I'm going to call a career. After I graduated from Cal, I went to work for Hewlett-Packard Company. A career gives you 2 things. You can earn money and it's self-fulfilling. It's something you say, wow, I like this. I liked when I worked in industry. I liked the jobs I did. I liked most of the people I worked with. I liked earning money and all those kinds of things. Career, earn money, self-fulfilling. I also think there's a 3rd type of work, and that's vocation. Being a student at Irvine, like students at Mequon, hopefully at any Concordia University, you understand the word vocation. A vocation is not only a way to earn money, not only is a way to be self-fulfilling, but primarily a vocation is a way to love and serve our neighbor. A vocation is a way that we love and serve others. You can think of computer science, and I hope you do, as a vocation, not just to earn money, not just to say, oh, this is cool, I love it, but to create good applications to serve other people. Good vocation. You've likely had some courses. We have some courses on the Mequon campus that spend a little bit of time talking about vocation. But at its heart, this is it. You should know that among theologians, there is a little bit of debate. Originally, the term vocation applied to church work. A pastor, a priest, a rabbi, a nun, those were vocations. But normal other things like farmer and computer science, those weren't vocations. Martin Luther said otherwise. Luther said, if what you do is done in order to love and serve your neighbor, then you have a vocation. And Luther was famous for saying that, you know, milking a cow is every bit as good a vocation as being a pastor. Vocation, you demonstrate commitment. Professionals demonstrate commitment for our vocation. Good news. I got a book deal based entirely on the dumb things you've said. It's totally legal because the law only protects intellectual property. And so began the sequel. This has no relation to anything, but this is a funny Gilbert. You recall reading that article in this unit by Dr. Fred Brooks, where he said a computer scientist is a toolsmith. Yep, that's our vocation. Dr. Brooks was talking about vocation all throughout that article. I don't think he ever used the term, but that's what it was all about. His analogy, that swordsmith has done a good job whose knight dies of old age. Exactly. Do our job well. Toolsmith, that's an honorable profession. Oh, don't forget about that Fred Brooks article. That was something that happened in Unit 3. Oh, look, here it is. Yeah, I know you did the quiz on this, and thank you for doing that. It'd be okay if you want to review that. It's a pretty quick read. By the way, reading Fred Brooks is a good thing for a software engineer. I couldn't remember how to throw a boomerang. Okay, yeah. And then it finally came back to me. It finally came back to me. We're going to stand up. Are you ready? But first, Chuck Norris keeps a diary. It's also published for all to see. Chuck Norris' diary is called the Guinness Book of World Records. All right. If you've been standing up, you can sit down for the next minute. If you've been sitting down, it's time to stand up. Are you ready? Stand up, walk around, come back in 1 minute. By the way, in addition to standing up, you could probably walk around a minute too. Or should I say 30 seconds? All right, that's really close. Martha broke her finger today. That's Seb's wife. See, ouch. And on the other hand, she's fine. You guys are not playing along. I'm going to make note of that. Did not laugh at jokes. Make exam harder. What's the hallmark of professional? What are the characteristics? You're saying, hey, we talked about 10 of them. Yeah, but philosophically, professionals demonstrate a passion for their vocation. It's not like a job. I got to go to work today. Or maybe in a career where I got to climb the ladder today. They demonstrate a passion for their vocation. The idea of commitment is expressed in their work. At the very beginning of this course, we chatted briefly about the difference between a professional and an amateur. I don't want to use the term amateur as the opposite of professional. You got a better word? I want you to let me know. What's the difference between a professional and an amateur? In general, philosophically, management. One key difference is management. Professionals manage themselves. Amateurs, not so much. Professionals manage themselves. When Paul, writing to the church in Corinth, which had a few problems. Boy, sounds like many churches. Paul said everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way. Great definition of management. Doing tasks in a fitting and orderly way. The word management, look it up in a dictionary. What does management mean? Interestingly, the root word that we get manage from is the word for hand. Management is giving someone a hand, as in helping. Management is not the classic Dilbert boss thing. That's not management at all. For those of you that have had jobs with bosses like that, you know that doesn't work out well. Good managers are committed to helping, giving a hand. Doesn't necessarily mean they're doing your job, but they're definitely giving you the tools that you need to do your job. Management, helping. Another difference between a professional and an amateur. Knowledge and aptitude. Those are different things. Aptitude, that's your built-in wiring. Some folks have a natural aptitude for certain subjects. I bet you've experienced this. You're in a class and you're struggling. You can't, what's happening here? It's hard. And your friend doesn't seem to have to put forth much effort and aces everything. Your friend is wired for that subject. Your friend has a natural aptitude for that. This applies to computer science. Many people, you guys, do have a natural aptitude for computer science. Other folks, not really. Okay. So one difference is professionals usually have an aptitude. They have some natural skills and abilities in that area. Now, we have to add to that something else. That's a wealth of knowledge. Learned in school and learned on the job. Professionals have a wealth of knowledge. Knowledge and aptitude are things that help separate professionals from amateurs. Daniel was a prince of Israel. Did I tell you the story how he won an all-expense-paid scholarship to the University of Babylon? Well, he did. Unfortunately, he was just carried there in chains as a captive. When Israel was overrun by the Babylonians, the princes were carted off into the court of Babylon. This is what it says about Daniel. Daniel was found to have a keen mind, knowledge, understanding, and the ability to solve difficult problems. Yeah. The work we do as professional software engineers is going to require a keen mind. That's like the aptitude aspect, and knowledge to solve difficult problems. What's another difference between a professional and an amateur? Attitude. Jesus speaking, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Wow, is that hard? Attitude. You understand it. Enough said. I did share with you that Catbird is my favorite character in Dilbert because it's so true. This is human resources. Catbird, evil human resources director. There are two ways to get an extra engineer for your project. You can transfer some unqualified loser from within the company, or not so fast. I like to savor the moment before I crush your misplaced optimism. Effort. Yeah, professionals are going to put out much more effort than amateurs will. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. Putting forth the effort. Putting forth in the effort in vocation, you're saying, well, why should I do that? I mean, am I advancing my career? Well, this is why. We might be able to sum all these up with this. What Jesus listed as the second greatest commandment. Love your neighbor as yourself. Notice that's a very proactive statement. It's not a reciprocal statement. This has nothing to do with what how our neighbor treats us. It's all about how we treat our neighbor. Love your neighbor. Well, what's that mean? Yeah. If you don't know the classic definition of love, it's sacrifice. Love is sacrifice. This is hard. Okay, did I say that? Good. Martin Luther not only wrote explanations to each of the 10 commandments, he wrote an explanation of all the commandments, the so-called close of the commandments. What does God say about all these commandments? He says, I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. This is what Luther said. God threatens to punish all who break these commandments. Guess what? That's me. That's also you. Therefore, we should fear his wrath and not do anything against them. Well, good luck with that. Can't be done. But thankfully, he promises grace and every blessing to all who keep these commandments. Therefore, we should also love and trust in him and gladly do what he commands. Wait a minute. We can't keep the commandments. You're right. Luther also said, Jesus kept the commandments for us. So when God looks at Christ, he looks at someone who kept all the commandments and doesn't see how we messed up. Pretty nice. Although we've been focusing on the 10 commandments in this class, I don't want you to have an incorrect view. The purpose of the 10 commandments, the purpose of the Bible, is not just to provide us with laws. Laws are important, but the main purpose is to show us the means of salvation. The main purpose of the biblical text is to show us the means of salvation. The law only works externally. If I tell somebody on a software engineering team, okay, work hard, be a team player. The gospel works internally. The only way you can truly change is by working internally. Seeing that software engineering is a vocation, a way to love and serve our neighbors, we're doing the work of God. All right, let's talk about this process a little bit. Oh, no, I don't, you know. How many different software development life cycles are there? Answer, many. The one that we have followed with those 6 phases is just one of many. There are many development models. The point of what we did this semester in CSC 222 was not to somehow memorize those 6 activities and all that went along with them, but to get in the habit of using a defined process. Because when you're working in industry, you will be using some defined process. It won't be what we did, but that's okay. You'll be working with something. And you can legitimately say when you're interviewed, ever do a defined process? Yes, yes. I know how to manage myself. I know how to manage my time. I know how to manage my technology. Yes, I understand a defined process. Can we review these in the context of what I said earlier today? Requirements and specifications, the first 2 activities that we looked at. The odds of you finding another software development lifecycle that has these 2 things in it as separate entities are low. Most people call it specifications, and they mean what we've called requirements and specifications. Or I've seen it called recs and specs, or I've seen it called just requirements, but most often you're going to see the first phase in the software engineering lifecycle that you do in industry, specifications. So why did I do these 2 things? Because I wanted to point out that there are 2 radically different things that need to be done when you're focusing on the idea. Requirements is asking the why questions, and it focuses on the problem. Why is there a problem? Why is a computerized solution to the problem needed? Requirements from a computer science perspective focuses on output information. That's what will solve the problem. Start with the outputs. Figure out the outputs. Team project, make sure you know what the outputs are supposed to be. Otherwise, you won't solve the problem. Specifications then asks and answers the what questions. What does a good solution look like and do? What are the features and functions? Okay. You'll see folks really focusing on that, but don't be fooled. You have to understand the problem first of all. All right. That was unit 1. Done. Unit 2, also done. Where we focused on implementation. Every software development lifecycle is going to have a design phase, and the odds of it being called design are nearly 95%. And what you do in design is exactly what we talked about doing in design, explicitly stating how the code will solve the problem. Creating algorithms, creating data structures, explicitly stating how. You're not just saying, oh, yeah, we're going to make a running total. How are you going to do that? Oh, yeah, we're going to clear the. How are you going to do that? That's design. Instantiation, creating the code. We've all done programming in the small. You've all done coding before. And yeah, we do coding in software engineering, but it's not the biggest piece of the pie. The third, now this is the one you'll remember, because that's what we're doing in this unit. And this is what you'll be tested on in exam number 3. Deployment phase, maintenance phase, the interaction of software engineering. Deployment. How do I get this product to the user? There's a lot more than that. And maintenance. What if I need to make a change after I've given it to the user? We've also done Scrum. Now, Scrum it's not an SDLC per se. It's just a way of thinking about an SDLC. It is a philosophy of doing an SDLC. Scrum was that cyclic idea. We create the product in sprints. Scrum is a framework. You notice within each sprint, we still do requirement specification, design, instantiation. Following diagram details the Scrum lifecycle. Scrum is iterative. Entire lifecycle is completed in fixed time periods called a sprint, 2 to 4 weeks long. Okay. Planning, execution. So you see it at a philosophical level of Scrum here, but what's happening in all this stuff is requirements, specifications, design, instantiation, and then do it again. We have a potentially shippable product. It doesn't have all the features and functions, but it does have some, and those actually work. That's Scrum. We've talked about DevOps in this class a little bit, just because it's another framework, it's another philosophy that you'll hear out there. This is more designed for folks creating internal products, projects that are within the company itself. So I work for a large insurance firm, and I'm making a billing system for my insurance firm. DevOps is a way to bring the development people and the operations people together. It's not doing anything weird or different than we've talked about in this class. What's weird is it doesn't happen in industry. The folks who develop the app don't talk to the people who are going to use the app. Well, that's not right. The operations people should be collaborating with the development people, so the development people know exactly what to create. DevOps, yeah. Wally, do you know your camera's on? Well, why? I can't unsee. How was your Zoom call? I found a way to shorten it by an hour. See, if most of you only had your cameras on, I might be done earlier. There's a question that I asked both Dr. Lippman and Dr. Josh Locklear last week, and that is, which do you think is more important in software development? Having great people or having a great process? You don't have to remember the name Watts Humphreys. It's just the name of the individual that developed something called PSP, the personal software process. Watts Humphreys says developing software products involves more than just stringing programming instructions together and getting them to run on a computer. Well, duh. His thesis is, if you want good work, you have to have a good process. You want a good product, it requires a good process. Which is more important in PSP, according to Watts Humphreys? Good process. Humphreys says, if you got a great process, mediocre people can follow it and do good work. So for a number of software engineers, good process is more important than necessarily superstar software engineers. Why is that? Watts Humphreys says, look, the process gives you a structure, and the structure gives you discipline. And when you have discipline, then you do good work. Good process, that means a structure. Structure provides discipline. Hey, what's another word for discipline? Management. You're managing yourself. Therefore, you are doing good work. Now, the personal software process says some things that we do in any type of software engineering. Number one, we have to measure things. We have to diagnose. Hey, we just completed a project. Was it good or bad? Well, let's assess. Let's measure. Let's diagnose. Collect data, analyze it. Now, Why do we collect that data? We're going to use this data in analysis. We're going to say, you know what? In the first week after deployment, there were 10 critical errors in the code. That's not good. Measuring things may imply changing the product. And then that will lead, these changes will lead, according to Watts Humphrey and the personal software process, to improvement. It's a feedback. You say, okay, I did it. How'd I do? If not so good, change, improve, do it better the next time. It would be interesting for you to consider this. In software engineering, which is more important? Having great people and no process or not a good process? Or on the other hand, having a great process with average to sub-average people doing it. Now, that's a false dichotomy. It's not that you have to pick one or the other. It's entirely possible to have good people and a good process. It's also entirely possible to have poor people and a poor process. But thinking about which one of these you would have to choose if you were forced to choose gives you some insight into your philosophy of software engineering. Would I rather have outstanding people? But maybe those outstanding people are kind of do their own thing kind of people. Or would I rather have this fantastic process that has given great results in many circumstances, even if I have to use ordinary average people like me? Did I say that? I did. Oh, this probably doesn't mean anything to you. Maybe you deduce this image is supposed to represent Moses, and these are the 10 Commandments. By the way, this is a very famous Moses. This is the actor Charlton Heston. And sometimes at Christmas time and often at Easter time, you'll see on over-the-air TV or some strange cable station a rebroadcast of the 1956, I think is the date, The 10 Commandments, starring Charlton Heston. You owe it to yourself to watch. When you think about that question, don't think about it in the context of anything else other than software engineering. I asked Wolfgang to join us. He's a software genius, if not a legend. He knows more than all you put together. Plus, his name is Wolfgang. People say his talent is genetic mutation. Others say that God speaks to him in Unix. All we know for sure is that he glows and he never needs to eat. I feel a chill. It means he's approaching. Please don't reprogram my DNA and make me a monkey. People make a lot of assumptions when you change your name to Wolfgang and stop shaving. So which is more important? Wolfgang, the super software engineer, or a good process? Thanks for thinking about that. When I was doing software engineering in industry, I went to a conference one time and there was a very interesting story being shared there. The presenter said, let me cut out all that part. The presenter said, I asked how many folks here create a mission critical project, important project. Almost everybody's hand went up. And then he said, okay, how many of you would use this product made by your team if you weren't forced to do so? He then related this other story. He said, I was at a convention where there was the software engineering tasks were being performed in the context of avionics. Avionics is software systems controlling airplanes. And part of it was a lot of folks putting together different avionics pieces to control airplanes. And he asked a similar question. He said, okay, how many of you would be willing to get on a plane that you know your team created some of the mission critical avionics? Only one hand went up. And he asked, well, why would you? When nobody else would. He said, the person said, well, I know if my team created it, that plane would never get off the ground. Wow. This brings us full circle to what percentage of commercial software applications contain errors? You recall that number is 100%. Software projects are behind schedule, over budget, full of bugs. You bet. Yeah. Even though we have 6 steps here, requirements, specifications, design, instantiation, deployment, and maintenance, that's not an algorithm. And that's the difficulty that you encountered trying to do it. You said, hey, what am I supposed to do next? There's no algorithm. It's a heuristic process. It's a gut feeling for how to put things together. And because of that, there's no single correct model to do software engineering. There's lots of good ways to do software engineering. There's also lots of terrible ways to do software engineering. Problem-solving methods are a guideline. A heuristic is a guideline. It's not saying this is how to do it. It is stating what to do. Okay. Don't forget about these transcendentals. This is important in the context of software engineering. Truth, it actually works. The product does what we said it would do. Beauty, yeah, not the implementation is beautiful. The code is understandable. The user interface is understandable. Goodness, it works well. It's fast, it's robust. Community, does it bring the user together with the system, or is it separating the user from the system? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not going to do that one. Darn. What I wanted to demonstrate for you is, I forgot, it's behind a paywall, and I don't remember how I log in there because I'm on a different system. I was going to show you an article, and you were going to find out, wow, I know a lot, not only of the terms in that article, but I know a lot of the concepts that they're talking about. I think you would be pleasantly surprised after 14 weeks of CSC 222, you've actually learned quite a bit. The article is specifically on automated testing, but there's a lot of talk about a lot of aspects of software engineering. And you say, whoa, I know what you mean by that, and that, and that, and that. So congratulations, good for you. Excellent. I think that's it. Yep, look, it's cast in stone. This is the end of day 27. Next time, I'm going to have a guest presenter during the first part. she is going to bring a different view. She works in the industry, but not specifically as a computer scientist, but more on a project management level. So we can see more how a client and user thinks about software engineering. And then we're going to spend some time reviewing, so you're prepared for the exam that will come up then the following Monday. Let me stop the recording, and then I'm going to hang around here in case you've got questions or concerns. So thanks so much for being here. You've survived a whole bunch. One more day to survive, and then 2 more things to do, and we'll be done. Don't forget about the assignments. Check Blackboard. Have a nice day. Have a happy Tuesday. I'll see you on